You're listening to the Story Brand Podcast, based on Donald Miller's best-selling book, Building a Story Brand. The Story Brand framework is made up of 7 key elements, all of them anchored in one powerful idea. Your customer is the hero, and you are their guide. Each week on the podcast, you'll get exactly what you need to craft clear messaging that connects with more customers and grows your business. Now let's dive in with your hosts, Donald Miller and Kyle Reed.
John and Larry, thanks for sitting down with us here on the Story Brand Podcast. I have to admit to you, you're the first person I've ever interviewed who had a movie made about his life. So I got to start there. What is that like?
Well, man, I think if anyone ever approaches you, Kyle, and says, man, they should make a movie about my life, you should run quickly away from that person. Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Listen, I'm a Midwest kid. I went through something that I wanted to hide from for the majority of my life. I wore long sleeves and tucked my hands in my pants to hide the brokenness that I felt every day of my life. And so I never in a million years imagined a film being made. And if the film was ultimately made about how great I am, I would not have allowed it to be made. But it's ultimately a film about how God works through all things and how ordinary people can change the world for good. And so even if you look at the film poster, it's not a picture of John O'Leary like on stage getting the standing ovation or whatever. It's a picture of his backside, the guy who plays me. And it's a mosaic of all the individuals from the film who saved that kid's life.
Wow.
And so it's a hero story, but the hero's not the main character. It's everybody else. And I think that's the kind of story right now as a society we might benefit from.
Yeah, that's a really powerful message. You know, has that been kind of your theme as you've gone through your life? Or did you discover that while you guys were filming? Where'd you kind of come up with that? Like, that's my mission. That's what I share with people.
Right. So I got burned at 9. I know we'll talk about that. And I hid from that reality for 20 years. And then in my late 20s, early 30s, I started to embrace the scars, embrace the brokenness, started speaking a little bit. And when I first started talking, I thought it was about my recovery. But what moved me almost immediately was the 6th presentation to a group of prisoners.
Okay.
Was the impact that the stories of everybody else in the room had on everybody else in the room. So I recognized pretty quickly my job is to get them to look in the mirror and embrace their story, embrace their authentic lives, the good and the bad, which allowed me then to stop looking at myself as much as looking at the characters who showed up for me, what they did, what they taught, and what it means for the rest of us. So I've been doing that as a speaker for almost 20 years. I have a couple books. And then the film is just, in some regards, the fulfillment of that work on the silver screen.
You know, we have a lot of people here. We're currently at our summit here, and you're speaking later today. I've heard several stories from people that are very powerful. And I'm curious from you, as someone who's now been very public about their story, there's a lot of people who want to share their story. They want to find ways to encourage others. What would you tell them? How do they go about that? What would you give them some suggestions on that?
I would first make sure you are sharing that story to elevate other people's lives. Don't take this the wrong way, my friends, but if you're doing it for ego or cash, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So if you are authentically trying to say, man, I got burned too, here's my story, and I think it might benefit you and yours, that's a big deal.
Yeah, authentic, right?
Huge.
Yeah.
And not only life-giving, perhaps life-saving for someone hearing it.
Yeah.
It's a really big deal. There's a guy named Henry Nouwen. Nouwen's a spiritual writer, great writer. He wrote that our scars exist because our wounds have healed. Later on in that same book, he wrote, what is most personal and private is most universal and sacred. So I share my scars authentically. I go deep into the pain because what is most personal and private, only in my story, when done for others, is most universal and sacred. It gives life to people. And so I would encourage folks to do exactly that, though, if they're being real about it. Yet don't begin on stages. Don't go to Rotary clubs and start, working for chicken lunches quite yet. Start at home. Start humbly. Start in a journal. Look in the mirror. Begin working through this yourself for a long time. Ask yourself the question, why does it matter? And then as you go, the next step, you're ready to write something. Rather than writing, dear ladies and gentlemen, I would write to a friend. So if I was dealing with an addiction and had overcome that and was working through that process, I would write to a friend currently dealing with an addiction that I know might benefit from my story. And I would write, dear Kyle, and it would just be so raw and real because I could write you a love letter. So the more we write personally to a person, the more we ultimately can impact many, many, many people.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a perfect segue. What's your story?
I mean, where I want to begin is at 29.
Okay, let's go there. I like that.
It wasn't when I got burned. It's when I'm in the back row of a church service, man. Barely made it in. I'll be speaking this over the stage here in a moment, but I barely made it in. I'm wiped out from the night before. My life has not gone the way I intended at all. I'm hungover. My arms are crossed, and I'm looking down. And the pastor was talking about the gift of talents and ultimately said, for those who feel like you've got none, listen, your life is a precious, priceless gift. And with that gift, you've got the job of saying yes to being used for good. So I'm like, all right, I'll heed those words, I guess. The following day, I get invited to speak to a Girl Scout troop.
Okay.
3 girls.
Really?
And dude, I'd never told anybody how I got burned before
Really?
that. Never talked about my hands because they're ugly and I wish they weren't like this and I can't throw a baseball. And my life is less than it could have been had that not happened. So I never told anybody. But on the heels of being challenged by a friend to say yes to being used for good, I said yes. That led to a speech, which was pathetic, but it was the first. You got to start somewhere, man.
Yeah.
And it led to a second and a third, and 2,700 speeches later, it leads to you and me having this conversation around the world, right? So I think when you said, John, what's the story? The story's about worth.
Okay. Wow.
The story is really about recognizing you have royal blood coursing through your veins. The story is recognizing you got one life, make yours matter. The story is realizing it's not about you. Quit making excuses. Start living your life. Start loving the one in front of you. Maybe start with the person staring back at you in the mirror. So what's my story? Like that's my story. And as you play this thing all the way forward, my story now is I'm a husband to a girl who I completely outkicked the coverage on. She's gorgeous. Her name's Beth. She gave me 4 kids. We got a dog. We got a good house. We got a great life. We got a strong faith. And I'm able to look back at the worst moments, recognizing I want to change spots with anybody.
Wow.
That's the story.
That's the story. You know, you said a word there I think is key, worth. You know, we're in a society now where I think a lot of people struggle with that word. They might be saying things in their head or wondering what's their worth, what's their value. And they're playing conversations over their head. The messages they're telling themselves are probably more negative than positive.
Right.
What would you say to them as how they kind of redeem or work on finding that worth in their story?
Ultimately, someone's going to judge your story and judge your life. And so the first judge to remove is social media.
Okay. Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't participate and show pictures of the dogs dressed up for Halloween. But my gosh, I mean, we give so much attention to what he said and she tweeted. And our life ultimately is based upon what the market is saying it is today. And if your market's based upon what 94% of news stories are negative, guess how you feel about yourself? So I beg people, be weary of social media. And everyone's like, yeah, I get that. Yeah. Do you get that though?
Yeah.
Are you paying attention to that? Who are you following? What are they saying about your world? What are they saying about the other political party? What are they saying about those people? Because if you're not careful, you believe them. So stop. Secondly, cut the cable. Just stop watching all the garbage at home. It is infiltrating your life and it is telling you how lousy the world is, and it's not true. It's not a true bend. So I would start externally. Then you can control the controllables. Then you get to look in the mirror. And man, ultimately, I'm a Christian. I recognize your listeners and viewers are going to come from every different faith walk, and how cool that there's room for everybody here. But in my faith lens, a God spoke and the entire universe leapt into existence. So in my faith, and you feel free to say, John, you're such an idiot. We'll comment about it below. Fine. But in my world, a loving creator spoke and life leapt. And to me, that's cool because I'm not an accident and neither are you, and neither's the individuals paying attention to our conversation. So I'm not an accident. I'm not cosmic clutter. This is an intentional life. And in my faith, going a little bit farther down the line, we have a God who loved us enough to lay down his life for us. And if that's true, it changes the way you feel about your own brokenness. And I've made every mistake twice. I'm an addict. I'm a sinner. I'm busted. My thoughts are terrible. Like that's how I feel most days. And God loves me.
Yeah.
So my job ultimately is to silence the noise to the degree that I can, cut off the outside external influences, and recognize that I'm loved.
Yeah.
If that's true, and in my life, it is, it changes the way I feel about the reflection in the mirror. It changes the way I feel about a guy interviewing me. And it changes the way I feel about everybody I meet in between on the journey through life. It changes us.
You feel like that's your message? That's your life message you're trying to share with people?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Then trying to give them some tools to do exactly that. Trying to help them build mission and clarity around how to do that effectively. Try to give them questions to ask throughout the day to be effective. I think being effective is key. And ultimately to recognize the things that matter and the things that don't. So I'm a business owner. I love building businesses.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when they're eating chicken salad around my pine box, they won't be talking revenue.
Yeah.
They won't be talking employee headcount. They won't be talking what he did in 2026.
Yeah.
They'll be primarily talking about what he was as a son, what he was as a dad, how he loved his wife, how he treated others, the least among us even. And then maybe they'll talk a little bit about the business, but I doubt it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the movie.
Cool.
So it's been in theaters a couple months. Is that right? Well, or maybe when people are watching this. But when did it come out?
Came out in October 10th.
Okay.
2025.
Yeah. So a month, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not that long ago. Cause we went and saw an advanced screening of it. That's what my timing on that is. How's that been? What kind of response have you gotten? How's that releasing a movie, doing all that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, there's so much to it. So I'm an executive producer on this film that I wanted nothing to do with.
Yeah.
But if they're going to tell your story, Kyle, they might as well tell it right.
Yeah.
And well. So as this thing was making its way down the line, we got more engaged and then ultimately went all in. So we're committed to this thing. The film was shot on location where it happened. So the house where I was burned, we shot the scenes there. The church where I was married, we shot the scenes there. My wife's wedding dress was worn by the actor playing my wife. It's like the details are spot on. So that's an emotional thing to watch. Couple more things around it. It's now, I think, 93rd biggest box office for the year. And more than that, it's the #1 Rotten Tomato film of the year.
Wow. That's a big deal.
Because the audience votes a little bit with their dollars, but they certainly vote with their hearts.
Absolutely.
And to have a 98% of folks leaving the theater saying, man, it was awesome.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, why? And the actors did a great job. And the fire looks real. And the Busch Stadium, I know you're a Cardinal fan. They brought it back to life.
Yes.
And there's some incredible stories.
The Jack Buck character was...
William H. Macy plays Jack Buck, this guy who's always being evil characters.
Yeah.
In many regards, plays a savior within the story. Jack Buck. And it's a beautiful story. But I think why audiences love it is it's a true story about ordinary love. And when you have that kind of heroism, it gives you hope that maybe we can become like that for others. Maybe instead of giving too much power to that party or that aisle, we can recognize the agency we have to decide how we want to build our businesses, how we want to love our families, and how we want to step forward.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your story with us. I'm really excited to listen to you talk today, but just appreciate you taking some time with us, sharing your story. The movie is out in theaters. Soul on Fire, you can go see it. How long is it going to stick around for, you think?
Yeah.
I mean, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes feels like it should be there for a while.
Yeah, but they're aggressive. I mean, these guys are running their top line revenue and bottom line profitability, so they're going to start pulling this thing out starting next week.
Well, the great thing is I can just go watch it on Amazon Prime as well.
It will be moving eventually toward Prime and then onward from there. But we feel blessed. I mean, when we build businesses to impact individuals, not armies, one at a time is how we change the world. And so the letters we're getting from school-age kids and inmates and servants, addicts from around the country and beyond, man, like it just reminds me that the work matters.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, being brave in that. And thanks for sitting down with us today. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kyle. Honored, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Story Brand Podcast. No matter where you are in your marketing and messaging journey, get the tools, the training, and the support you need to start clarifying that message at storybrand.com. And don't forget to follow and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and then leave a comment letting us know what resonated with you and what we can unpack to help your business grow in a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.